Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Our listener support campaign continues. You can support the show on an ongoing basis for as little as $2 per month at patreon.greatdetectives.net. But today our focus is on those one-time donations, support.greatdetectives.net. Also use the Zelle app. Send it to box13@greatdetectives.net or by mail to Adam Graham, P.O. Box 15913, 15913, Boise, Idaho 83715. If you send along a donation of $25 or more, I'll happily send you one of several Colonial Radio Theater audio dramas. Among the options that we do have, there are 5 different adaptations of Perry Mason novels, as well as 6 different Father Brown-related releases. If you send along a donation of $75 or more, I'll happily send you one of the great Harry Nile releases from Jim French Productions, or their Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And if you send a donation of $125 or more, I'll send the CD version as well. A full list of available thank you gifts is over at support.greatdetectives.net. Well, now it's time for today's episode of Box 13. The original air date on today's program, February the 13th, 1948, and the title is The Sad Night.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd, as Dan Holliday.
You dribbling old idiot. What did you do with it?
I'm not going to tell you.
Carl, be careful.
Shut up, Therese. We've got to find out what he did with that copybook.
What's the matter?
Look. He's dead.
Dead? You killed him.
Don't be stupid. He just died. There's no one can prove anything. Just keep your mouth shut and help me find out what he did with the copybook.
Well. Somebody sends me a copybook through Box 13. Now I wonder why. And now back to Box 13 and Dan Holliday's newest adventure, The Sad Night. Just a child's copybook. And on the front cover was the name Marina Layton and a date, the year 1930, written in a childish scrawled handwriting. I riffled through the pages. There was nothing of interest, at least. That's the way it looked then. But Susie thought differently.
Maybe it's some kind of a code, Mr. Holliday, like one to a buried treasure.
Susie, with your imagination and my typewriter, we could go places.
Well, gee, the Count of Monte Woolley found a buried treasure.
That's Monte Cristo, Susie. 2 different people.
Well, they both had beards. Oh, look.
Huh? What's that?
It's a letter to Box 13. Listen. Box 13. A day or so ago, you may have received a child's copybook in the mail. If you did, I should appreciate it if you'd bring it to the address below. Yours truly, Therese Layton.
Let me see that, Susie.
Here.
6821 Lakeshore Boulevard. Swanky neighborhood.
Are you going to take it back, Mr. Holliday?
Oh, yes, Susie. If only to see how the other half lives. So I went to 6821 Lakeshore Boulevard. I tossed the copybook in the back seat of my car and it bounced on the floor. Maybe I was thinking about anything but the book, but when I rang the doorbell of the big house, I suddenly remembered I'd left the book in the car. I just about started back down after it when the door opened.
Yes?
I'm looking for Teresa Layton.
I'm Mrs. Layton. And you?
Holiday. Dan Holiday. I'm sorry, box 13.
Oh, of course. Please come in, Mr. Holliday. In the library, please.
Thank you.
Won't you sit down, Mr. Holliday?
Thanks very much.
It's very kind of you to come all this way to return the book. You see, it belongs to my little girl, and I suppose she sent the book to you in, well, mischievously.
Your little girl?
Yes, Marina. Sometimes I think she's a problem child.
Oh, really? How old is she, Mrs. Layton?
7.
Did she tell you she sent the book to box 13?
Well, no, as a matter of fact, she wouldn't say. Then her father found a newspaper with an advertisement cut from it.
And?
We got hold of a paper with the same date and compared the page.
Nice detective work, Mrs. Layton.
I suppose all this uproar over a child's book seems, well, stupid, doesn't it?
Oh, no, not at all. But there's one question I'd like to ask.
Yes, Mr. Holliday?
You say Marina's 7 years old?
That's right. Why?
There's a date in the book, 1930. It seems to have been written in the same hand as the rest. That date would make her quite a big little girl, wouldn't it?
She put down that date, I suppose, well, not thinking.
Oh, yes, of course. Where is she now, Mrs. Layton?
She's dead, Mr. Holliday.
Huh?
Mr. Holliday, this is my husband, Carl.
How do you do?
I'm very happy to know you, Mr. Holliday. You have the book.
You get right to the point, don't you?
Mr. Holliday, our daughter Marina is dead. We want the book merely for sentimental reasons.
I could understand that if your wife hadn't
Lied to you?
Bluntly, yes.
Therese, dear, will you excuse us?
Yes, I'll be upstairs.
My wife isn't well, Mr. Holliday. It's not an easy thing for me to say, but she imagines our daughter is still alive.
Look, Mr. Layton, if I'd ever written a story with as many holes in it as yours, I'd be laughed out of the writing game.
What do you mean?
Your wife says Marina sent me the book, yet you say Marina's dead. You know, you two should get together.
All right, Mr. Holliday. How much do you want for the book?
Oh, now we're getting someplace. What's it worth to you?
500.
Oh? That's a lot of money for a child's copybook.
You asked how much, and I told you. Now, may I have the book?
I don't think so.
It's worth nothing to you, Mr. Holliday. Believe me, it's worth absolutely nothing to you.
All right, maybe I'm just curious. Tell me why you want the book, and maybe we'll do business.
I can't tell you.
Or you won't tell me. Is that it?
I want that book. Now.
I haven't got it with me.
You're lying.
All right, search me. I haven't got it with me. I forgot it.
You're going to be difficult.
Look, the book was sent to Box 13, obviously not by you, your wife, or your daughter. You found out it was sent when you traced my ad, right? All right, that means someone else sent it to me. I'll return the book when I find out who and why.
Mr. Holliday, I'm going to get that book.
All right. We'll play a game. Book. Who's got the book? Now, goodbye, Mr. Layton.
Goodbye, Mr. Holliday. You can find your way out, I hope.
I think so. Oh, anytime you want to tell me the reason behind all this, we may be able to do business.
I think we'll do business, Mr. Holliday. Later.
I left, and when I got home, I spent the rest of the day and most of the evening trying to figure out why anyone would be so anxious to get hold of the book. It was filled with a kid's scrawling handwriting, sums and addition, problems in subtraction, alphabets. Then I came to one page and stopped. It was filled with strange, weird-looking figures, as a kid would try to draw human beings. But there was something about them that didn't look like a kid's work. They were grotesque, almost fiendish faces and distorted, twisted bodies. And underneath were 3 words in Spanish: La Noche Triste. The sad night. The words were scrawled too, but somehow they were different from the rest of the book. I kept turning back to that page, wondering, trying to connect something in my mind with those figures in the book. And I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, it was 3 a.m. Turned off my light, lay back in bed, then I was getting company unexpected, and I wasn't in the mood to entertain. Where Well, what a wonderful thing a skeleton key is, like the magic words, open sesame. Somebody was looking for something, and it wasn't Easter eggs on the White House lawn. I waited, and then... Looking for something, Bud? Whoever it was didn't wait for the floor show. I turned on the light. Yeah. He'd grabbed the book, but he had left a knife behind. One that I picked up with a handkerchief. If there were fingerprints, he would introduce me to the gent. And Kling could do me that favor.
Got any idea who it was, Holiday?
No, I haven't, Kling. We had our waltz in the dark.
Oh, must have been romantic.
Oh, yes. I was overcome. Look, can you get prints off that knife handle?
Seems to me you could pick an easier way of meeting people.
Oh, I like the hard way. It makes for lasting friendships.
Look, did he try to knife you?
Well, I don't think he was doing KP with it.
Why was he after you?
He wasn't.
Oh, I see. He breaks in at 3 a.m. You surprise him, he pulls a knife on you. But he wasn't after you. It was just a social call, or maybe he was a visiting nurse.
Kling, will you see about those prints?
Yeah. You'll prefer charges.
Maybe, but more important, he took something I want back.
What?
A child's copybook.
A child... You know, Holiday, the more I see of you and this Box 13 gimmick you run, the more I believe in elves and pixies. Why did you have a child's copybook?
I'm learning to write.
You're going to keep this all to yourself, huh?
Till I find out what it's all about.
Okay. Well, from what you say about the cookie who disturbed your Betty bar this morning, you might have a record.
In that case, you can tell me who he is.
You don't want me to pick him up?
No, I'd rather have the pleasure. You see, he hung one on my chin.
He hung one on here. All right. Come back in an hour.
Oh, Mr. Holliday. Gee, I've been trying to get in touch with you all morning.
I was at headquarters, Susan.
Oh, what'd you do?
Oh, no, don't jump to conclusions. Why were you trying to get in touch?
Look.
Huh? When did this come?
This morning, I picked up Box 13 mail at the Star-Times, and that note was in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, as they say in the books, Susie, the plot thickens. In fact, it's so thick now I can't see a thing.
How'd you get that bruise on your chin?
I shaved with a baseball bat this morning.
Oh. Well, are you going to meet Marina Layton?
That's what she asked me to do in her letter. So if you want me, I'll be at
where she said, the lobby of the Camden Hotel.
So I got to the lobby of the Camden Hotel. It wasn't hard to find Marina Layton. She was dressed as she said she'd be. I took a good look before walking over to her. She was about 24, not pretty, but with one of those faces that always says, wonderful day, isn't it? Okay. So maybe now I'd find out what all the excitement was about. I walked over. Oh, pardon me. Are you Marina Layton?
Yes. And you're...
That's it. Box 13.
You know, I didn't think there was such a thing. I thought this would all turn out to be some sort of a joke.
Oh? Well, do we sit here?
If you like. Well, may I have it, Mr.
Holiday. First name's Dan.
All right. May I have the book, then?
I haven't got it, Marina.
But you must have it. Mark said he sent it to you.
Oh, no. Another character in the show. And who's Mark?
He was my father's dearest friend. But surely you ought to know that.
Look, Marina, I don't know a thing.
Wait a moment. Here's his letter to me.
You want me to read it?
Yes.
Dear Marina, for years I've kept something from you that your father wanted you to have. Now I know someone else wants it. But you can have it by writing to Box 13, care of the Star-Times. I want to write more, but I don't dare. Just remember your own name is a clue. Love, Mark. Well, what? If your father wanted you to have what he gave to this Mark, why didn't he try to get it from me?
Who tried to get what from me?
Your father and mother,
That's crazy. My mother died when I was born, and my father disappeared almost 5 years ago.
Oh, now it begins to make some sense. Not much, but a little.
What are you talking about?
The character who said he was your father, he wanted that copybook of yours. He must have found out in some way that Mark had it.
Who was the man?
I don't know. He said he was your father.
I don't understand all this.
It's two of us. But listen,
What's the matter?
how do I know you're Marina Layton?
But I am.
Yeah, I guess you are. Because since someone already took the copybook from me early this morning, it'd be a little senseless to try to get it this way. All right, Marina, what do you know about a copybook? Yours, with the date 1930 written in it.
Copybook? Mine? But nothing at all.
Huh? Well, now, wait a minute. All this business has to mean something. Don't you even remember a copybook?
I suppose I must have had one. Wait, of course. Black, ragged-looking. Alphabets in it.
That's it. Now, what about it?
Nothing. It was just an ordinary book. I scribbled in it and... Did you say 1930?
Yes, why?
Because in 1930 I was with my father in Mexico. I had the book then because I was being tutored by Mark, and I used it for my lessons.
Did you write anything in it that might be important?
No, not a thing.
You must have.
I didn't.
Did you write the Spanish words, La Noche Triste?
Why, that means the sad night.
Yes, I know. Did you write them?
No, I don't think so.
Then your father must have. But why?
Are you sure those words were in the book?
Well, of course I am. Oh, would Mark know?
Mark? Why, Mark's dead.
And now back to The Sad Night, another Box 13 adventure with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
We went to the place where Mark had lived. Yes, he was dead. Heart failure, the doctor said. But we learned something else. That he had had visitors the night he had died. And from the description of them, they could have only been the man and woman who posed as Marina's parents. And I learned a few things more from Marina. That her father was an archaeologist. In 1930, he was excavating Aztec ruins outside Mexico City. It was on the way back to Kling's office in my car that she told me some more.
Father disappeared in Brazil almost 5 years ago. Then the remains of his expedition were found.
And your father?
He died. But he left records, letters for the museum.
And anything for you?
No, nothing.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Wrote letters to the museum, yet nothing for his daughter.
Why do you say it like that?
Doesn't it seem odd that he should leave letters and records for everyone but you?
Yes, it does.
There are a lot of things that seem odd. You wait here, Marina. I'll be right out.
Well, Holiday, just about to leave your office.
Oh, what'd you find out?
You had distinguished company this morning. Little Georgie Garson, strong man, general hoodlum.
I didn't think it was little either.
Want me to pick him up?
I love your company. Okay, Kling, let's go. I want to ask Georgie a few questions. It took Kling about 5 minutes to get Georgie to talk. He told us he'd been hired to get that book, and from his description of the guy who hired him, well, it couldn't have been anyone else but the man who posed as late the day before. And a quick trip to the house on Lakeshore Boulevard. We might as well have stood in bed. The fake Mr. and Mrs. Layton were gone, and with them, the copybook. It left us at a dead end. But at the morgue of the Star-Times, Marina and I learned something else.
Uh-huh. I think we got lots of stuff on Albert Layton.
Shout it out, Jonesy.
Yeah. And he's the one who got himself lost in Brazil about 5 years ago, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Here's a folder on him. News clips, photos.
That's Dad.
Look, who's this, Jonesy?
Now, let me see. Oh, that's the guy who found Layton, or what was left of the expedition. Name of Carl Bremer.
Oh, Mr. Bremer and the gent who wanted that book are one and the same. Did you ever see Marina?
Not that I remember.
Where were you when your father went to Brazil?
In school.
And you didn't see him again after he left for Brazil?
No.
Jonesy.
Uh-huh.
You know a lot of things. What do the Spanish words La Noche Triste mean to you?
Nothing except they mean the sad night.
Is that all?
Yeah, why?
Because they mean more than that. Marina, can you get a sample of your father's handwriting?
Oh, yes, of course.
And I've got a hunch that Bremer and his wife are leaving for Mexico.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah?
Look, this Layton was an archaeologist. Why don't you go to the museum to find out about him?
Good idea, Jonesy. Thanks. But I've got a phone call to make first. If my hunch is correct, we've got to stop Bremer from getting to Mexico.
Let me get this straight, Dan. You want this Bremer and his wife picked up, huh?
Yeah, that's it.
What's the charge?
You pick them up. I'll prefer charges. And maybe one of them will be murder.
What?
Will you do it?
Well, what if they're out of the country by now?
Extradite them.
You gotta have a strong charge to do
Well,
that.
I have. 1, causing the death of an old man by trying to force something out of him. 2, hiring Georgie Garson to break into my apartment. And 3, attempting to defraud. Is that enough?
Yeah. You make those charges stick.
You get them, and I'll make them stick. Marina got a sample of her father's handwriting.
Is this what you wanted?
You sure this is your father's handwriting?
Of course. That's a letter from him, just before he left for the interior of Brazil.
But the writing in the book, it was nothing like this.
Well, maybe he didn't write it.
He must have. Wait a minute. Mind if I write on the other side of this paper?
No.
Okay. Now watch. I'm right-handed. But suppose I write like this with my left hand. What's it look like?
Just a scrawl.
Sure, as a kid would write. As you would have written in 1930.
But why would he have done that?
To make it look as though you had written it.
That doesn't make sense.
It does make sense if you realize that your father had learned something that was big enough to make him want to hide it. And where would he hide it? In a place no one would ever think of looking for. A kid's copybook.
No, he kept his notebooks. Everything he did was in his own notes.
But not this. You were with him in 1930. What was he doing?
I told you, working on the Aztec ruins outside of Mexico City.
And what did he find?
His findings were published. The museum has
the museum. What's the matter with me? Come on, Marina. Maybe we're getting someplace.
Yes, of course I know Albert Layton's work. He was a great man. World has lost a genius, Miss Layton. Too bad.
Look, Mr. Dougal, we want you to help us.
I'll do my best. You said over the phone that it was important. Had something to do with our Mexican antiquities here at the museum.
Yes, that's right. What did Professor Layton send here?
Well, come in here, into the Aztec room.
I remember all these things.
Of course, everything isn't here. The Mexican museums were given their share, and...
Oh, pardon me.
Yes?
Look.
What's the matter?
Look on that far wall. Look at those figures.
Oh, yes. Well, they're only copies. Quite well done, of course. The original paintings were lost when the Spaniards destroyed the temples. The Aztecs were jealous and warlike people.
Because on the far wall were the same figures I'd seen in that copybook. The same grotesque, weird figures with their twisted bodies and savage faces. There were 3 of them. Their painted eyes looked out at us, seemed to accuse us. I turned to the curator. Mr. Dougal.
Yes, Mr. Holliday.
What are those figures?
Well, they're Aztec gods. The one over here in the upper left is Quetzalcoatl, supreme god of the Aztecs. The one in the upper right is Huitzilopochtli. He's one of my favorites, a god of war. The one at the base of the triangle is Tlaloc, god of rain.
Marina, those were the figures in your copybook. And they were above the words La Noche Triste.
But why? Why should Dad have done that?
Mr. Dougal, what is that triangle?
Well, where each of those figures is painted was a temple long ago destroyed by the Spaniards under Cortez. In the center was one of the causeways that led to Tenochtitlan. That's today's Mexico City. It was over that causeway that the Spaniards made their escape on La Noche Triste.
La Noche Triste. Look, sit down, Mr. Dougal. I want you to tell me a lot more. The curator talked for an hour. And what he told Marina and me all added up. The copybook, the figures of those old Aztec gods. Oh, Marina's father had something all right. And he hid it in that copybook. No wonder Bremer wanted it. No wonder old Mark had kept it, and the whole thing made a story that went back over 400 years. A story of greed and bloodshed. One that reached out to touch me, Marina, old Mark, Bremer, all of us. Later in Kling's office, facing the Bremers, with Marina sitting there, too.
All right, Holliday. Let's have it.
First, I'll take that copybook, Bremer.
All right. What good will it do you?
None. And it wouldn't have done you any good either.
What do you mean?
You caused the death of one man to get this. Another man, famous, respected, lost his head and tried to keep what he had found. But it wouldn't have done your father any good either, Marina.
No, I know.
What's the story, Dan?
Well, it really begins, Kling, when Bremer found the remains of the Leighton expedition in Brazil. He found letters, records. He brought some of them back with him, but some he didn't. That right, Bremer?
You know everything. You tell it.
Thank you, I will. One of the letters was to Marina. Marina, whose name is the same as the Indian girl who was Cortez's consort. That was the one you kept, Bremer. A letter telling Marina about the copybook and what it contained.
All right. What is it, Holiday?
Let's go back to July 1st, 1520, to Hernan Cortez and his army. The army that marched through Mexico and destroyed the Aztec Empire.
That's got something to do with all this?
Everything. On that night, the Aztecs rose up in fury against the Spaniards. They had thought Cortez and his men were gods, but they'd found out differently. They determined to drive the Spaniards out forever. The Spaniards took all the gold they could carry. The Aztecs went after them. They trapped Cortez and his army on one of the causeways that led to the city. The causeways were narrow. There were thousands of Indians in canoes. All night long the battle went on until in the morning 450 of the Spaniards were dead and thousands of Aztecs. But Cortez and a remnant of his army escaped, got to the mainland.
And the copybook?
Those 3 words, La Noche Triste, the sad night, are written into Mexican history as the night Cortez and his army and the Aztecs fought and killed each other until the canals were choked with them. The gold the Spaniards took with them did them no good. They couldn't fight with it or eat it. So sobbing and screaming, they dumped the treasure into the waters of the canal, and it sank into the mud at the bottom. It's never been found. Marina's father thought he had located it. But look. Here's a map of modern Mexico City, where the causeways once ran. There are streets and houses, so you see no one will ever find that gold. And maybe it's just as well. It's too red with blood to be of any use to anyone.
But gee, Mr. Holliday, if all that gold's there, why doesn't somebody go after it?
Oh, you too, Susie.
Oh, no, I guess not. But, tell me something, Mr. Holliday. What were the names of those Aztec gods?
Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Good night, Susie.
Next week, same time, through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd stars as Dan Holliday in Box 13. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville, with an original story by Russell Hughes. Original music is composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. The part of Susie is played by Sylvia Picker, and that of Lieutenant Kling by Edmund MacDonald. Production is supervised by Vern Carstensen. This is a Mayfair production from Hollywood. Watch for Alan Ladd in his latest Paramount picture.
Welcome back. Well, a really effective use of the Box 13 format. I just liked how this one moved, and the twists and turns the plot took. So this is just really well constructed. Dan is on top of his game, really thinking things through and coming up with a good solution and continuing just to follow every clue. And he found his clue in a logical location, didn't find it in the Star Times morgue, which has actually kind of become a regular place he visits for information and solving a case. And in many ways that makes sense because, both in being a journalist as well as being a novelist, a big part of the research that you do your success, the key to it is just being able to produce the right people to give you the right information. We start with some comments and feedback from Eric on Facebook, who suggests some ends for some recently departed series. Regarding Rocky Jordan, Eric writes, "This, along with Nightbeat, became my favorite show despite how it limped to an ending once Moyles left. I know they didn't do series finales in old-time radio, but if they did, the only true way to leave Rocky is with him and Sam sipping a coffee at a cafe on the banks of the Nile, friends out of work as well as in. I think that's the way I'm going to picture them as we fade out." Well, that's a pretty solid ending for that one. And he then goes ahead, he writes on the last episode of Boston Blackie, "I started out really disliking Boston Blackie and stuck with it based on something you said about how it improves. It really did, first by adding Blackie and Faraday, making Blackie and Faraday work together, then adding Mary, and finally as the dynamic grew a little stale, adding more time with the criminals and side characters. Not many old-time radio shows made changes to stay relevant for such a long period of time. This, though, seems like a good spot for the series to end. The formula was getting kind of stale. Again, as you said, there were recurring themes like the bad guys leaving a line of easily traceable bodies. Until the final episode shows up, I'll just imagine the last moment of the series. Faraday finally pins a crime on Blackie like he wanted to so long ago, but doesn't have the heart to press charges because he's proved he's reformed and they've become such close friends." That's, I guess, an interesting conclusion, and yeah, I could kind of see that. Series finales, it's an interesting topic. I listened to a podcast with Greg Taylor. You may know the name. He did the Decoder Ring Theater podcast. It's still putting out episodes, but they're doing more audiobooks than audio dramas. And the series Blackjack Justice, which was his hard-boiled detective post-war series, came to an end after the 11th season when Christopher Mott got a job, which essentially meant that he couldn't do it anymore. Christopher Mott, the star who played Blackjack Justice. And Taylor said he did not actually see the need to do a series finale. He said, there are some series that you absolutely have to have a finale. He said, MASH needed a finale. But he said, many series don't. He said Blackjack Justice didn't. And I could definitely see that. Because Blackjack Justice, like a lot of series, just kind of, it goes along, it does its thing, and there's not really like any progression in plot or ongoing goals. I think, I'm currently listening through the Red Panda Adventures, and that series, it better have a finale in season 10 because, which is, that's also written by Taylor. Because, there are so many plots and threads that are going places. And there are series I feel it's, necessary to have a series finale like Monk. That series needed to have a finale because throughout that entire series, his goal, his great white whale, was to find out who had killed his wife. And that needed to be taken care of. That needed to be solved. And there was so much that had to be taken care of in that, final episode. So I would have been upset if Monk didn't have a series finale, I should say. Columbo, on the other hand, I'm kind of okay with just imagining that Lieutenant Columbo continued to have many more adventures and mysteries. Guy kept solving mysteries into his 70s, so he passed the mandatory retirement age because he's Columbo. So it's definitely a tricky thing as to whether they're needed, and there's a good case that, some cases that it's not required. And I think both Boston Blackie and Rocky Jordan, we could kind of just imagine them going on, continuing to do what they were doing. forever. But as Eric alluded to, series finales were really rare in old-time radio. There were a couple that had them. I think Candy Matson did. And I think that really did make sense just to bring resolution to her pursuit of Detective Mallard. Though there are ironically some people who don't care much for that ending to the series. And then we have this from Bill, who writes, first Rocky Jordan and now Boston Blackie rides off into the sunset. And like Rocky Jordan, one of the main characters, Mary Wesley, didn't make an appearance. I've been a fan of Boston Blackie ever since I saw the Chester Morris films on TMC about 15 years ago, and I've really enjoyed the radio episodes with both leads, even though I'm not very fond of puns. I was hoping that before the end of the series there would be an episode where Blackie's first name, Horatio, was revealed. I'm sure Faraday would have had a field day with that. Thanks. Well, who knows? It may be in a lost episode, Bill. Which brings us the comment from Jody. I'm going to miss Boston Blackie. It's been one of my favorite shows. I also hope they find some lost episodes. Thank you for bringing to us. Well, you're welcome, and there is, some reason to hope for lost episodes. Actually, two of the episodes that we played, I don't know which one specifically, right off, but, they came into, being because somebody found a transcription disc of some Boston Blackie episodes that were not in circulation and just put it on eBay, and it got bought by someone who helped make it available. So there's always that possibility. Certainly Boston Blackie was a syndicated series, and it was syndicated for many years after its first airing, which, gives it a lot of time for there to be discs that land wherever. And I'm sure folks will be looking forward to the possibility of finding more, particularly if they have the Champagne Velvet Beer ads. Thanks so much for the comments. And I do want to go ahead and remind you, listener support campaign continues. You can support the show on a one-time basis, support.greatdetectives.net, using the Zelle app to box13 at greatdetectives.net. If you send along a donation of $75 or more and live in the U.S., I'll happily send you one of the Agatha Christie, either her complete Poirot short stories or complete Miss Marple short stories, either one with a donation of $75 or more. And for a donation of $50 or more, I'll send along a DVD, The Michael Shayne Mysteries, Volume 1. 4 films starring Lloyd Nolan as Michael Shayne. A full list of available thank you gifts over at support.greatdetectives.net. I want to go ahead and thank our Patreon supporter of the day. Thank you so much to Lisa. Lisa has been one of our Patreon supporters since August 2018. Currently supporting the show at the Shamus level of $4 or more per month. Thank you so much for your support, Lisa. And that will do it for now. Join us back here tomorrow for It's a Crime, Mr. Collins. And then on Wednesday, we will be premiering The Man Called X. And on Thursday, Raffles. In the meantime, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.